I'd suggest someone like a Ratan Tata understands psychological safety better than anyone. Phenomenal person. There's a TEDx, um, presentation from Amy Edmondson that I'd highly recommend. Yes, good. No, it's very, very interesting, and it's inspiring to see your career, Aaron. To watch it from afar, it's those things that give you a kick that you had, a very small part to play in someone's rise. So it's been great to see what you're doing.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Actually, it all started in because you had sent a message to me that, and it was very heartening, a message which I saw on LinkedIn. You had mentioned that, Arun, it's going to be very, very interesting to discuss with you on your incredible is the word which you use. So thank you so much for that journey. Actually, the journey has started from 2018. Of course, it's about you are there's nothing like host and guest, but I think let me share something. Though I am the host.
Sure.
Till I was in Tata Blues, still nothing changed because I got a feeling that when we are in a setup, in an environment where things are good, I think we know that Jim Collins has written that good is the enemy of great. We do not even think of doing something which is
absolutely.
And then once it started in 2018, I started getting a deeper meaning and everything, including all that I see around you. And that was incredible an experience. And then I was wondering, Arun, why did you take 45, 44 years before you had this realization? And then I started getting a feeling that, no, I think there is something called comfort zone. And when things are,
yes.
we all are in that zone. Nobody wants to break it, including me. And then I think there are moments when the universe designs something for you, and actually it pulls you out of your comfort zone, though the decision was mine to leave the company. And I think that was the right time when I took the decision. And that was the best decision, despite the fact that I left the company, which is, Tata Group is such a, hats off to Tata Group. It's a salute to the group. But I got a feeling that when I left and then I came into another multinational where I saw things happening. Of course, it took me a couple of years because on the face value, nothing is true, right? You have to go deeper and that takes some time. And then I saw something happening in corporates. And then you might have heard about Gautam Buddha, when he went to a place, he saw people who die, people who become elderly in age, people who have disease. And then you started thinking, so there's something wrong with this world. There's something with this society which I need to find the meaning of. And then the similar thing happened with me, but it happened with me in a corporate setup. When I saw some people crying and literally crying, very senior CFOs, and then coming to me and telling me, Arun, you are the head of HR, why don't you do something? Because there is somebody who is very senior. And of course, you're going to talk about psychological safety. There was zero psychological safety. This guy told me that, Arun, if you say something which the person does not like, he's going to ruin you in the meeting. So he believes in a very interesting adage. And that is appreciate, if at all you appreciate in private, and rebuke in public, so that the message goes. So that was a very different setup. And I did what normally 99% HR people do, Darren. So I also used to do what? I used to do things like, I used to comfort them. I used to offer them a glass of water. I used to offer them some tea, coffee. Don't worry, he's your boss. He's a senior guy. He has got a lot of challenges. Board is there. Blah, 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 blah. I used to get a feeling that there is something hollow within you. That's not the way. I think you are yet to face the world and truth and reality is the way the world moves. And then, Darren, I realized another thing, that we keep on hearing a lot of things which might not be good with the world, but unless we ourselves see things happening with us, our comfort zone does not allow it to be broken. It does not break.
Exactly, and what you uncover there too is some of the themes that I suppose that I focus on. Authenticity. You can't be something else. You have to be yourself. And so, if you're living a lie, it's really uncomfortable, and in the end, you'll just wear yourself out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I thought of, sorry to interrupt. Then I'll just take 2 minutes, and then we'll get into the topic.
Yep.
And then I thought that, Arun, is there a way for you to elevate your level to maybe, just like we see iPhone 1, 2, 3, 4. I think now we have got iPhone 14. I think I have got iPhone 12 or something with me still. We remain the same version of person that we used to be. We saw something in childhood days. We responded to certain situations which are happening with many people, and based on the response, we became somebody. Based on our surrounding and all that. And we remain that way, and I remained that way till the age of 45 years. And then I decided to, and then I had this question, can I change? Can I transform? I can't transform the world unless I change myself. That was another realization. And then I went on a path. I had a little, it was not a formal coaching. There was some coach who asked me to wake up at 5 o'clock, and then he used to make me practice some habits. And Darren, it has been many months since I've been conducting a program Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5:30. And there are people who are joining me because unless we change our habits, we do some meditation, we do some affirmations, we just sit in silence. Just the most important thing is just to sit in silence, because we are never in silence. And then we start taking the journey within, and then the way things have started happening, I saw that I had started thinking differently. I had become more confident. I started talking to the same Mr. X. So when I wrote my first book, let me take this book. Very interesting. Of course, this is in the background. When I wrote this first book, there is a character here, Mr. X. He is this character. Yes. So actually, many people do not know it's absolutely 100% true. Someday I'll certainly send a copy for your reference. And then I wrote at the top, adversity is the mother of transformation. Adversity in my case came when I left a group which was very well settled. And then I realized, oh my God, Arun, give a pat on your back. You broke your comfort zone. You didn't want to, it just happened. And had it not happened, I would have remained the same. Who was like shy, like courteous, who is like, okay, who is like smiling, and still he's not facing the realities of this world, unless he's not doing something to make this world better. And then, of course, the rest of this is the entire story here. It's a very thrilling story. I'll send a copy for your reference. This is the story of version 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. It's very interesting. So, audience, I'm sorry I've taken some time because Darren sent a message to me.
Reminiscing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Darren. So, we are talking to Darren Pye. Mr. Darren Pye, and Darren, to me, has been one of the most charismatic and dynamic leaders that I have met. And Darren, if I can say so on a lighter note, while you were there in Pune, some of the female colleagues used to come and tell me, Darren looks so cute and so nice, so handsome.
I'm much older these days.
To tell me, I recall, and they have told me only about you, about no other person. So we are talking to Darren. I had the privilege of working with Darren for, I think, close to 1 year, 2 years, I think before 2008, before Darren decided to move back to Australia. We are talking to Darren, who is the director in a company called Bus Stop 26 Wine Private Limited. We'll listen to Darren. And till recent times, he was the CEO, Chief Executive Officer in a company called Versiclad. Before that, he was Chief Operating Officer in a company called Amber Tiles. And then he was in senior leadership team in a company called, what is the name of the company? The retail chain?
It's called Bunnings.
Bunnings, yeah, sorry, how could I miss it? Bunnings. You worked there for almost 6 years. Now, the most important part. And then before that, Darren worked in a company called Blue Scope Lizette for more than 9 years. And Darren, I noted one thing, that you worked in this company for 9 years while working at 5 different locations: Adelaide, Perth, Sydney, and then a company, Wollongong. I have not heard the name of this place. I think this must be a beautiful place. And then in between, Darren also came to Pune and came to India for 2 years. I think, Darren, when it comes to breaking the comfort zone, for me, universe broke it. For you, you have been breaking it. So let me put my hands together, because I am so happy to talk to you. And the audience, so we are going to talk to Darren. And I think, Darren, let me share one thing before the starting point. So let me get a picture here, and then we'll start from there. So the audience, let me show you something. This is a letter which Darren had handwritten. And I think this is really, of course, I guess some people may or may not read. I'll read some of these things. And I recall in this letter, Darren, you had spoken in the first paragraph, you had mentioned enthusiasm, can-do attitude while writing about me. And I was so happy to see that you had written it. And I think you had done it for many people before you left India. In the last paragraph, you said something which was on the spot. That was the time when I started having a couple of people reporting to me, and you said, Arun, I would like you to work on, I think you said it very politely. For this year, the priority could be leadership. I knew absolutely he's right, because I have to work a lot in this field. Darren, thank you so much. I don't know how many leaders take this effort and time to write something, make a handwritten note. And I think in the last paragraph, you've written very powerfully something that it's all about giving empowerment to people. That empower your people and they will exceed your expectations is something which I've written in the last line. Darren, do you feel, how is it in Australia, in some of these places that you have worked? Because let me share with you my thought. I still think it's something which many people talk about. They feel good while going and delivering a talk in some of these forums at national and international forums. When it comes to practicing it, their own insecurities will jump in and probably they will not do it. Coming to psychological safety in some of these fields. Darren, once again, thank you so much. Over to you. How do you feel when you look at your journey?
Look, I mentioned, Darren, that it was kind of inspiring that letter meant a lot to you, that you actually posted on LinkedIn. I actually saw my own handwriting before I realized what it was. So that was a really powerful one for me. I ask everybody, when was the last time you hand wrote a note to somebody? It's more powerful than an email. It's more powerful than anything. We've lost that art of handwriting. Yeah. I use that practice a lot. And I say a lot, not all the time. And why I don't say all the time is because it's got to be authentic. It's got to be real. If I don't feel that it's worth doing, then I won't do it when I'm leaving someone. In fact, my previous role, there was probably one person I should have written a note to, and I probably will still send her a note, but I wasn't feeling it, so I don't do it because it's just words on a page.
Absolutely.
I can't remember what I wrote to you, Arun, but you reading those back, it's exactly what I'd write today. You know, it's authentic that way, and I think the art of that is how much, and particularly since, how long have I been away for? I've been away now 14 years from India. In that time, the world suffered such polarization, and social media has driven that polarization. Everything is negative. Media is negative. Everything, all you're hearing is the bad things about the world. So when you start off with saying, hey, what are the good things about Arun that I really appreciate and I learnt myself about, write them down. And then what do you think that person could do a little bit more of that would take them to the next level? Write them down. Thank you. Loved working with you. Hope to come back to India soon. That's essentially what the letter says, isn't it? Yeah. So, but it's very powerful, and it gets through to one person. I was reflecting on my own leadership coming into here, Arun, and I think sometimes I can be, people can overlook my leadership. People can go, well, what is Darren doing? But it's the little things behind the scenes like that can penetrate, that make a big difference, that also give me the most kick out of leadership. I said to someone a month or two ago that when you're truly leading, your team will do what you need to do without you telling them to do that. And when you get there, that is the most satisfying feeling that you can get to. And I absolutely maintain that. If they just are in sync and you've taught them everything you can, probably it's worthwhile changing and going doing something else and affecting somebody else. But that's the utopia for you to hit that sweet spot.
You know, it is very powerful. Darren, you said something which is very interesting. You said being authentic is the real thing. You also said that about one person that you didn't feel like writing, you didn't write. Absolutely. So it's all about saying no to ourselves at times, saying no to others. It's important to say yes. It's important to say no as well. The challenge here is that we try to please everybody, and at times we are doing something which we ourselves are not feeling good about, and still we are doing. And that brings me to the point of not being authentic, Darren. Believe me, this is what I have seen in my life also. The day I decided to be authentic, I started actually getting enlightenment. Sorry to use this word. I think it sounds to be a big word, but this is exactly what
absolutely.
You actually start getting that Bodhi tree moment. You know, you start getting a feeling as what happened when Lord Buddha, he sat and meditated for 10 years. And then he started getting that thing which is known as enlightenment. You know, there is an aura when you look at his picture. I'm saying in a very humble way, being authentic, being courageous, saying yes to things which you truly believe in. If you do not believe in something, and if you do not believe in some people, say no politely. I think there is a way of saying no. There is a way of still talking to people, smiling, and still telling that there is something which maybe we as a society need to change. Something has to change. I think being authentic is the most important thing. I think, Darren, this brings me to, before we move on to the topic of psychological safety, I also saw that you are currently being trained as a coach for cricket. It's very interesting. So why don't you start with that? Yeah.
Yeah, so football. So my passion in life has always been football. I played football all my life.
Yeah.
And I've been away from the game. I had a difficult year, a couple of years after I came home from India. I spent most of it in hospital with the spinal surgery. I was
Yeah.
born with a back defect. It was always going to happen, and it was a time of reflection.
Right.
But that was the last time I played football, and I went away from the game. Last year, I now have three children, and my eldest daughter, uh, and I've actually just come from football training, I must admit. My eldest daughter is absolutely passionate about the game. She finally said, I want to play. So I went, okay, let's do that. And I was probably going through the pandemic, and different things were happening that I had lost who I was. I was compromising myself too much, and I kind of reflected on that I needed an outlet for myself. And
Yeah.
part of my outlet is probably aligned to what you showed first of all there, Arun, is just um, developing people and getting a kick from seeing that. And I went, you know what, I've coached for 11 years, so I've always been around the game. But I went, you know what, I'll coach your teams, because the girls really wanted me to coach their teams. So I coached their teams. And then by the end of the year, I went, you know what, this is having a big effect on me mentally in terms of positivity and being re-engaged with the game I love. So I've just completed my advanced coaching course again. And I say this is about as selfish as I get. I said I'm selfish. I want Australia to win a World Cup. That is what I want to do in football. And
Wow.
the only way we can win a World Cup is if we have better players. And to get better players, you need better coaches. Therefore, I need to play my small part in getting us to win a World Cup. And that's, as I say, I say it's selfish, probably not really selfish, but it is exactly how I feel, and go, right, I need to commit to this and do something. So this year I'm coaching an elite team. Oh, I'm coaching three teams actually, but I'm coaching an elite team in the Sydney competition, and progressing through the ranks to get better myself. And you can always get better.
Darren, you said something very interesting. I see three things in what you said. First thing is that thinking big. I always tell my mentees, it costs nothing.
Absolutely.
90 out of 100 people, if not more, are actually thinking a small. And I think it has got to do with comfort zone or some of those things, like, if things are good, if things are okay, then why do you think big? Because thinking big also is going to make one put in a lot of efforts. For example, once you are thinking of, seeing that Australia wins World Cup, it means that you are going to become the best coach. You are going to coach people with lot more intensity. And before that, you yourself have got trained for being a coach, which means what? Which means that we are going to do something on ourselves before we do something for the world. So I think many people do not want to put in those efforts, is what I see. So thinking big is something which is really incredible. Second thing which you said is that the best of players will come once we get the best of coaches. Because I've been in the field of coaching, I do one-to-one coaching for some people, and I've seen that. I think I've always seen that unless we get a coach, nothing changes. Would you like to say something about the power of coaching in the field of sports? Because it's very powerful concept.
Yeah, well, I can say it in both fields really. I believe in always finding a coach, and that coach will evolve over time as well. From a business point of view, it's needs based. So the recent coach I had was for a certain purpose. And that's probably linked into what I mentioned, why I got into coaching, is because I was starting to feel like I was sacrificing everything, and I needed someone to just rebuild me in some ways. I didn't need someone to tear me apart. I needed a bit of rebuilding, and that was right for the time. In terms of in sport, look, each individual coach is different. I treat my players like I would treat myself, and that's how I would get the best out of me. Which therefore, I'm not the best coach for every player. I'm not the shouty coach that demands and all these sorts of things. That doesn't come naturally to me. And therefore, I don't play that role because it's not authentic to me. But what I find, and coming up through, I captain captained my state in football, and progressed a fair way in my football career. But the coaches that I had didn't connect with, and I feel that one of the things that didn't happen, if you were trialing for a team, if I was trialing for a higher level team, and didn't make the team, you got a letter saying thanks but no thanks, and that was it. There's an interesting story I'll just indulge myself with at the moment, Arun, that I actually had that displeasure, I suppose, of letting one parent and a child know that, look, not this year. I want you to get more game time. Go back and play. And and I've got a coordinator who manages that process. And the parent actually replied and said, "Can you give me feedback why you didn't make the team?"
Yeah.
So he sent it to me and said, "Can you do this?" And I went, "Absolutely." And I went through key technical aspects of his game, and probably similar to the letter that you've got, Arun. I really like this. I really like this. He hasn't got this yet. He hasn't got this yet. He needs to work on this. He needs a goalkeeper coach. If you want a goalkeeper coach, I'll do it for free. Don't pay someone, because everyone gets paid in Australia to coach their kid because they're going to be the next biggest thing. I'd rather get rid of that and just coach for free. So I gave him a one-on-one session. I brought the father down and I said, "Look, this is what I'm seeing. Can you see it now?" Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
And I said, but what I didn't see, because I don't get to see that in trials, he's got beautiful hand-eye coordination. So he will go far, but you've got to be determined. You've got to commit to technique, because he's lazy with his technique, because he's covering with one of his advantages. The parent was over the moon, so thankful, because it was the right feedback at the right time. I could have said, "Look, don't worry, he's great, he's fine." But how would that help the kid?
Yeah.
You still have to, again, going back to that letter you've got, Arun, it's still, I didn't point the finger at you and said you weren't strong in certain places, but I know in that last paragraph there are things I'm pointing at you to say you need to focus on these things, Arun.
Absolutely.
And without that, how do we get better?
Absolutely.
So similar, I think, between sports coaching and whether it's professional coaching or whether it's just mentoring a person at work. There's so many similarities in that process.
Absolutely. I think it's all absolutely parallel. And one message of inspiration which I'm getting from your decision to become a coach, and one of the best coaches at that, is that whenever we decide to do something new, whenever we decide to follow something called our passion, or whenever we decide to do something which is close to our heart, for whatever reason, I think this is going to add lots and lots of health and fitness and a lot of happiness to your life, I'm pretty sure. There is no early or late age for it. I'm pretty sure that Darren might be in his late 40s or early 50s. I'm talking about the age, but he have decided to venture into this initiative now. And there are many people, Darren, I have seen, they want to do something new, but somehow they just get a feeling that it's too late. Would you like to give a message to some of these people who get a feeling that, oh my God, it's too late. I don't know whether I should start it now. I think people know the stories of Ray Kroc, McDonald's, who was started at the age of 50 to 53, and KFC, Colonel Sanders, who was started at the age of, I think we all know it's all cliche. Would you like to say something to these people who want to do it, they are not able to?
It's never too late, is it, with anything? I took up a new sport in India. My coach in that field was Mr. Chris Hargraves. He's a runner, and I think his last day of work ever is today. I think he's still working at Blue Scope and down in Melbourne, and he got me out running, and I think I've done 15 to 20 half marathons now. My first one was the Mumbai half marathon, and I loved it. I was terrible in it, and I loved it. I knew straight away it was a passion. And you can start that sport anytime. It really doesn't matter. You can teach your body to run 21 kilometers, and it's satisfying. And why it was satisfying to me is, and I talk a bit about this in my life. If there was one thing I'd change in me, I was too competitive as a child, and I was too competitive early in my career. In some ways, India might have actually changed that. India changed a lot of things about me, but I was just trying to compete with everything, and I didn't realize what competition was. I just thought that was everyday life. Therefore, I look back at my football career, and I was playing professionally, and I think, when did I last enjoy playing? And I think I was 11 years old. And sometimes you've got to take something on that you're not very good at, because then you don't have high expectations about yourself in being the best in the world. So taking something on that you're not good at is really satisfying, because you're not competing with anybody then. That's how I found a new passion.
Very, very powerful things which we said. So you were in India for 2 years, and within these 2 years, you could find that there is a marathon going to happen in Mumbai. You went and participated. And I know many people who have been there over last 30 to 40 years or 50 years in India, in Pune, in Mumbai, and they have never participated in a marathon. I always tell my mentees that it's all, whatever you emotionalize, visualize, and vocalize, whatever you keep on talking about, it actually materializes in your life. And just see, you wanted fitness. I think it's very, very clear that over last couple of decades, or maybe longer than that, you have been a person who values fitness. And probably I can see the connection now. And there are many people, Darren, who still are thinking about making a beginning. You said more than close to 20 half marathons you have completed so far, right? Close to that.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think let's put our hands together. It's amazing. I
also had about 5 or 6 years off as well after my spinal operation. So it was a big gap, but I came back much better and took it more seriously. I trained a lot more for the latter half marathon. So my first half marathon in Mumbai, beautiful, because there was no cars on the street, and running along past the Taj, just fantastic day at sunrise. It was a beautiful day, and I loved it. But I finished it in 2 hours and 39 minutes.
Wow.
My last half marathon I did in Sydney, I finished in 1 hour 46. So just improving myself, not trying to win the race, but incrementally just improving as I went ahead. That's satisfying, and you can pat yourself on the back when you complete 21 kilometers. It's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, actually, I get a feeling. I learned it later in my life and career, Darren, that till we are in that race which people call as rat race, the race in which we want to be the best and all that, we keep on comparing with others. But the day I started there, the day I did my vision board exercise, when I made a vision board for me, when I discovered my purpose, passion, vision, my values, my strengths and my goals and all that, there is a vision board. Let me share that in the backdrop. The day I did it, I knew one thing for sure, that we all are unique. There is no comparison. We all are absolutely unique. And once we start being in the field which makes us happy, there is no comparison with others, because now the comparison with me. So, but that will only be understood by those who know what their field is. I think the challenge here is that many people do not know what they stand for. So here, I had written about my purpose, which you can see here now. So, and this was done in 2019. This was 1 year after I had this realization. So, and there is I'm living every word which I wrote that time. And of course, I did it. I made this chart, which took me 3 hours to make. I did it after 2 days of introspection, sitting beside a river with a group of 30 people, questioning ourselves, writing something, thinking, taking deep breath, meditating. And we did a lot of 2 full days. We spent almost 36 hours. We used to start at 8 o'clock in the morning. We used to go on till 2 o'clock in the morning. So we spent 2 days. And actually, that's the reason I have been conducting vision board exercise for many people here. So I wrote, let me look at some of the words. How to see that people can start working at a higher level, 10x I am writing, higher level than their current potential. How to have that mindset which tells me that when things are going well, it's okay. When things are not going well, give a pat on your back, because now the time for greatness has come, because now your comfort zone is getting broken. And I mean, people call it as challenges. How to transform the mindset, because unless you transform the mindset, you can't change your life. And I also got a feeling that I wrote about coaching and inspiring, creating miracles. Up to miracle is something which people do not use in corporates, but I know miracles happen. But for that, people have to do something with courage. They have to understand, they have to know themselves, and then they have to start walking on that path, which is going to take a few years. But once you start putting some time, every single day, it's like a seed. I think I always tell people that we all have got a seed of some talent which makes us absolutely unique. There is nobody like Darren, and I mean it because I have gone deeper in this. But there is nobody like me. There is nobody like Darren, and Darren has got some talent which I can't even think of having. 20, close to 20 marathons. Many people can't even think of doing. But the thing is that I think Darren has been spending time. He has been doing something, some great things about his passion, the field which belongs to him, the strengths that he has got. But I think 90% plus people do not exactly think about they're in the right race. They do not know themselves. I think, there are so many videos which say that take a journey within. And even I used to read and I used to get no sense of this. But once I took a journey within, I knew the real power lies within us. We've got all the answers to the questions if we just spend some time with ourselves and we do it repeatedly. And then, Darren, when I wrote my core values, see, there is a match. You had written about enthusiasm. You see, the first, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying the connection. Energy and positivity. This is my core value. So my idea is that whenever I talk to somebody, the person should leave my company with some kind of positive feeling. I do not want to do anything which makes people feel belittled, which is what happens a lot in corporate. We'll come to psychological safety and daily learning. So I have to learn with each passing day. And then I think once I started writing, so I have written again 4 or 5 books this year also, so close to 1 dozen by now. This is one of the books which is there in all the bookstores in the country, where the basic theme is the same. The first book says what? Adversity is the mother of transformation. Okay. The second book says, this was the fifth one. This says that in case you fall in love, okay, but in case there's a breakup / adversity, you can use this moment to make your life 10 times bigger. So this is for all the youngsters in India. You know that there are 25 to 30 crore Indians who are in their age group of less than 30 years, and many of these people go through love and breakup and all that, and then some of these people take extreme steps. Some of these people do not take that extreme step, but they waste many years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Years of their life. So I think all these things are getting connected, but I think that's the reason I got a feeling that the first thing which people have to do is to take a deep breath and know themselves. So I do some programs around this. So very nice. So Darren, now coming to the topic which I want to discuss with you, and before I come to psychological safety, while working in BlueScope, you shifted to 5 locations, breaking comfort zone. Would you like to share something on that? Because I know many people in Pune, Darren, many people who have started working in their first company, they are still working, and their career has stagnated. If somebody asks them to go out of Pune for the sake of career, they will say no. I mean, so would you like to give some message to people who?
Sure. It's probably in my nature. I grew up in a city north of Sydney called Gosford, and couldn't wait to get out of the place. It wasn't until my father was ailing and was about to pass away that I was looking after him and realized I fell back in love with my home city. But I'll never live there again. But I wanted to get out. I moved to Japan as an exchange student. I moved to London. Lots of Australians go to London and have a year over in London. And LinkedIn can be misleading, Arun. I was actually at BlueScope for 17 years.
Okay.
It's just the start of it. It was called BHP back in those days. So there's years of BHP. And I was lucky enough to be accepted onto the BHP graduate program, which was a big thing in those days. And I remember the phone call coming through from BHP and saying, congratulations, you're joining our graduate program. And I said, yeah, that's fantastic. I've already heard that. What can I do? And they said, you can have any location you want in Australia. Where would you like to go? I went, oh, okay. I've never been to Melbourne, maybe there. And that's how I chose the start of my career. And I look back now and think, how crazy was I? That was more out of my comfort zone than anything. Sydney, Melbourne is a big divide in Australia. It's probably more like Delhi, it's that sort of feeling to it, or Chennai, Delhi maybe. But I decided to move to Melbourne to start my career. Now I have 2 daughters that were both born in Melbourne. I've been backwards and forwards to Melbourne, but so let me count. I started in Melbourne, moved to Wollongong, moved back to Melbourne, Melbourne to
I've seen it. Perth,
to
Adelaide,
Wollongong again, to
Wollongong,
Sydney,
yeah.
then to Perth, India, Sydney, Adelaide, Melbourne with Bunnings, and then back to Sydney. So sort of 10 locations around the place. The beauty of, and you're right, it pushes you out of your comfort zone. But I was sort of that sort of how can I put it? I was itching for a change a lot, so I wanted to experience those things. The great thing for me right now, and moving into a new role in February, is I can relate to everybody in my team who are across Australia and New Zealand, because I've lived where they live. Yeah. You know, I can say I'm a Perth local. I can do all of those things. So you know, pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. If you're not doing that, then you're not trying. And one of the things, there was an interesting comment thinking about life and career, and there's a famous Canadian poet and songwriter called Leonard Cohen that you may or may not know, and he has a song and it goes, "There's a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in," and that's my pitch to say nothing will be perfect, and it shouldn't be perfect, because if it's perfect, the light doesn't get in. The light has to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
While she's here, let me introduce, this is my daughter, Xanthi.
Hi, how are you? You are so sweet. It's Arun from India. And namaste. Very nice to talk to her.
Yeah, that's my greatest creation, that one.
Very no, it's absolutely, that's the best time, because I've got 2 daughters. I know when I am with them, the happiest moment, best moment. Great. I think you're saying something, or else we'll go to the next one. There is something.
That was it. That was just awesome. Talking about, don't try to be perfect. You know,
awesome. Now, there is a Indian cricketer. He is known as the fittest cricketer in India.
Yep.
He has been doing pretty well now of late. He had a dip in his career. He had a lot of cracks in his career, and now he has again come up. And he gives this full credit for his success, for his fitness, to one of his visits to Australia. When I went there, when I saw some of these players, bowlers and players, cricketers who were so fit, we are talking about Virat Kohli. Virat Kohli has written he has given in one of the interviews, he has said that when he went to Australia and saw their eating habits, their living habits, their fitness regime, he was totally awestruck. And then he came back to India, he stood in front of a mirror, he said, "Virat, you can't win. You can't be a good cricketer unless you make a huge change in your fitness regime." And I think he gives full credit behind his fitness regime to Australia. Would you like to share something as how people in Australia remain so fit? I think while looking at you, Darren, I'm getting a feeling that you are looking exactly the same the way I saw you in 2008. So how did you, I think you already have shared some of these things like marathon. Would you like to share something? Yeah. How do you take care of eating, and what kind of things you do so that people are so fit there?
Sure thing. But I'll comment on what you mentioned about Virat Kohli. You could use the parallel there, that you can't be a great leader without reflecting and look at yourself in the mirror and seeing your deficiencies. So it's a really powerful thing, and I admire any cricketer that goes through a hard time that comes through the other side. The Australian version right now is Usman Khawaja. Usman Khawaja was in the wilderness for a long time, and now I think he's just about to pass 1,000 runs in the season when we play South Africa Boxing Day. Yes. So he's had a fantastic year, but he was out in the wilderness for a long time, and I'm sure if you were in his mind, he's had to really reflect. But how do Australians keep fit? Look, that's an interesting question. It's not homogenous community, of course. You still have either end of the spectrum, but we have what's different for me in Australia to India, and there's so many things in India I prefer to be in. I talk about the fact that my transition home from India to Australia, I thought that's going to be easy. That was the cultural cringe. That was the cultural cringe that I really struggled with. to come back to Australia because I wasn't Australian anymore. I was Indian. The food was awful food. There were so many things about it that I just couldn't stand, and that was difficult because I was Australian. I didn't expect to experience that. But what we do have here is lots of cycleways, lots of footpaths where people go walking around Sydney Harbour, just beautiful areas that people get out and exercise. For me personally, I react badly to bad food. I actually, one story I have is that I got sick in India. I got sick while I was living in India. I was horrified once. And that's when I came home to Australia and had a meat pie. My body didn't like processed food, and I struggled with that. So having fresh food in India is, it was fantastic for me. So, eating healthy is something that we do because it's just what you do. We have so many influences on our population in Australia. I think it's just passed over in now there's a measure that went from Vietnamese being the second largest population behind Caucasian in Australia to Indian descent now. So it might be religion, might be Hindu, might be the second biggest religion. I can't remember now, but that's crossed over. So, but we have, the Vietnamese, the Italians, the Greeks. We have such a plethora of good food in Australia that is, healthy. That we're spoiled for choice. But coming back to your point to wrap this up is I find when I'm not looking after myself and my body, I'm not making the best decisions. So if you're not physically fit, you're not mentally fit. And there's a really strong connection between those two things of keeping your mental fitness through your physical fitness. So I always need to be physically fit for exactly that reason. Otherwise, there's too much light coming in.
Wow. This is very powerful. Actually, I come from the family of naturopathy doctors. My wife is the daughter of one of the best naturopathy doctors in India. And I have never seen, I'm talking about Dr. Nagendra Neeraj, he is my father-in-law. I got married in 2003, almost, we shall be completing 20 years next year. And I have seen that he has never in last many decades eaten anything which is processed. So and we say that it needs a lot of sacrifice, a lot of control. He will eat either fruits or vegetables or home cooked food. He has not taken one sip of Coca-Cola over last maybe 30, 40 years. I mean, he's that kind of, so there are people like him. But I think in Australia, I've seen typically the standard of fitness is very high. So would you like to share some of these vegetables or fruits which you eat very frequently, or something which people eat a lot, which is very healthy?
Yeah, can do, but I would say we're a sporting nation where, everyone plays sport here. So it's a pastime. And I look at training in India. Firstly, the pollution doesn't help you when you're training. But equally, I remember running past Pune University down the middle of the road because that was the safest place to be. Where here we've got so many different paths to go there. But coming back to the foods and fruits we eat, talking about my daughters, when they go to school, they have to pack fruit. So they're having bananas, mangoes, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, apples.
Wow.
So they've always got that habit that we're building habits in young children all the time that they enjoy fruit, But in terms of vegetables, and I have a different view to my family. I love pak choi, which is a Vietnamese vegetable, and my family doesn't like it. I really love it. But some of those stir fry vegetables, are very popular here. But the normal, carrots. My daughter's not agreeing with me with anything here. Brussels sprouts. So we have an influence of that English influence, but fortunately that's not so influential anymore because the English food I don't think is that great. But we've created our own cuisine from all of the cultures I think that have emigrated to Australia.
So good. So I'm now talking to the audience. If you also want to become like Virat Kohli, please pay attention to what you eat. It's very important. I think it's so nice to talk to Darren on this topic. And audience, once again, just to tell you that is interaction without any script. This question, all the questions which we're discussing, these are not scripted. We have not discussed, I think. But I think we shall like to discuss, we shall like to hear your thoughts on two topics, Darren. I think both these topics are very close to your heart. I think one is psychological safety. You have been doing some studies and would you like to share something on psychological safety?
Yeah, look,
Me and the lady from Harvard who has done some work. So over to you.
Yeah, Amy Edmondson, phenomenal person. There's a TEDx, presentation from Amy Edmondson that I'd highly recommend. Summarizes everything. Take you 15 minutes. It's really good. But I think this is something, each culture is strong in certain points. And if I use a parallel, I landed in Mumbai the day after Australia won at the SCG against India in a cricket match that was very heated. Harbhajan Singh and Andrew Simons, if that rings a bell, and all things were happening around me. And I think I had a unique insight into that because I was Australian, so I knew what Australians were like. They were pretty straightforward. They were like, but he was racist towards him. And I knew it from an Indian perspective is you can't say that, that's insulting to say that in the press. So I knew that was going nowhere. That was really disconnecting in what was happening there. But so what I'd say is the Australian culture couldn't comprehend how to deal with that situation because we weren't strong in that aspect. We were strong in other aspects. So if I just harp on something though, in my observation, that sometime in India isn't present, and the champions of that is another generation. I think Arun is preaching that this is so important. This is not just being nice to people. This is about getting superior performance, and it's called psychological safety. Psychological safety would tell you that if you berate someone for making a mistake, they won't tell you about the mistake, and they won't improve from the mistake. You must let that mistake happen. You need to report that mistake, and how do you learn from that? I've also heard someone else call it FLEARN, fail and learn, but do it really quickly. And I think my previous company, Bunnings, does that extremely well to the point where people don't realise they fail at all. So failing and learning, really important ingredient. You need to make mistakes. In fact, to the football teams I coach, I say, make mistakes today because this is the place to make mistakes. Not when we're playing the game. In training, please make as many mistakes as you can because that's the most powerful ingredient to learning. That's hard before that. There's experience, there's teaching, and then there's failing and learning, and that the fail and learning is much greater than any other topic. So Amy Edmondson would tell you that she started a study, and this is how she stumbled on it. She was studying key hospitals in the USA, and she was looking at the error rates of these hospitals. And then she put them in an order and says, it just looks like I've got them round the wrong way. But what it was they were ranking these hospitals in terms of performance, but the hospitals making the most errors were actually the best performing hospitals because they were reporting the errors, so therefore could fix the errors. Absolutely. What you're not reporting, you can't fix.
Absolutely.
So you don't want that to be driven underground. So you want people to make mistakes, but you also have to drive performance as well. It's not a easy come, okay, I can make all the mistakes I want. It's not just about making mistakes. It's also driving accountability to fix those mistakes and leading. So it's a topic near and dear to my heart that I see go wrong so often. And I would suggest to you that any company that is suffering from a lack of psychological safety can't be high performing. I'd suggest someone like a Ratan Tata understands psychological safety better than anybody because I see it in how he speaks, his humility to people, all those sorts of things. It's a really interesting topic that you could talk forever about, but it's a one that I'd harp on and say people should look at and understand a bit more about it.
Yeah, no, this is very powerful. This topic is very close to my heart, Darren, because I always tell people that despite the fact that we all know that, people talk about as a, in a very fashionable way that, Edison failed 10,000 times before he could invent light bulbs. But then people do in real life, in corporates especially, I've seen people do not have enough capacity to let people commit mistakes. People are rewarded, people are given increments based on the right things which they have done. And board also is looking for profitability. Any mistake and board also comes down heavily. So I think there is a cultural flow from the top. By the time it comes to the employees, no mistakes. And I think on the contrary, any company you talk about, Google, you talk about anything, there must have been great companies. There are many great companies in Australia, Bunnings and some of these companies we spoke about. All these companies have grown because people have been given this freedom. They have committed mistakes, but then they have learned. So this ecosystem for people to learn and still experiment and then again learn and again get better and better and better and better has to be there, which I think unfortunately is not there in many companies. Ratan Tata is one of the best examples because he is the person who thought about new cars in India. And he has given, in one of the interviews, he has said that very categorically that there were times in his life when he was left alone because people got a feeling that he's doing mistake and then people got distanced. But then he's the person who is today revered like people, bow in front of him. I think that's the way. So how do you look at corporates, Darren? Do you get a feeling that how is it there in Australia? Would you like to share something about family-run businesses and some other companies in which you work? Do you think they allow mistakes and they allow people to learn to the extent they should?
It's a really good question and one that's on top of my mind at the moment. But one word about Ratan Tata, and we were talking earlier on about bold, huge visions. If you don't build that vision, you're not going to build a bridge to get there. It's going to be shorter, And Ratan Tata, when I was there, had the vision of the 1 lakh car. And regardless of whether that's a success or not, that drove the team on a vision, and it's powerful vision to get there. But corporate versus family run. The interesting thing about Bunnings, they're part of Australia's largest company, Wesfarmers, and they're the biggest part of Wesfarmers as well. And a lot of people around the world, and fabulous company, they spend so much time on learning and development. And for us, we would travel to Europe every year and look at businesses like ours, like Hornbach in Germany or Castorama in Paris, things like that. But the one store that was interesting that we had to go and visit because that's what we wanted Bunnings to be was a toy shop called Hamleys. We wanted that delight. The kids have this delight being in the toy shop. We wanted that in our hardware stores. An interesting side point there. But what they did, Bunnings, was that I think they've got about 60,000 people now. In my day, it was 41,000 people. They wanted to have a small business culture of 41,000 people. So they drove power down to the lowest level in the business. So the people running each store had autonomy to drive it. The best thing I picked up in India, I must say, is the Tata management system. I've still got that book of how they drive the bicycle. And that's exactly a similar mindset to driving Bunnings. Is they don't tell you there's not rules. It's you must drive the back wheel and you must have something in place to drive that back wheel. So they're free to do that. Corporates, I think BlueScope's getting better. I think BlueScope suffered a little bit from being too corporate, bureaucratic, but a fresh set of hands, I suppose, that have come into that business. Who was our chairman when I was leaving India, I must say, Mark Vasella, incredible leader. So, I think that's a big part. But I've had the experience of working in the last two businesses I worked in that essentially were both family businesses. Amber Tiles is one of the biggest tile retailers in Australia, and VersaClad is a panel business that they put panel into residential purposes. And what you find, you've got to expect in those businesses a bit. They can be a bit irrational. They can be on a whim. They can change direction. They can, so sometimes you're in your business and you think, nothing changes. well, be careful what you wish for, because the other end of that spectrum is difficult as well. So management is sometimes very difficult, and so the corporate beast could do with a dose of Bunnings that tries to make things happen quickly, and family business probably need a little bit more corporate governance to drive a better outcome from the passion that they have, So, but it depends on the size. If Tata is a family business, that one's a pretty well run one.
Thank you so much. So time is important right now. We just have got 2 minutes time. So Darren, I wanted to ask the last 2 questions. Would you like to share with the audience some of the books which you found very inspiring, some of the books which you would like to recommend to people in case you like reading? Because you suggested some videos of on psychological safety, which certainly I'm going to put the link of when I read the video. Would you like to share some movies, anything which you would like to share?
Yeah. So I'm going to say one of the things about it, and I've done a similar process to you, Arun, with developing purpose, and it takes a week. In our time, you have to get into crucible moments about what really makes you. You can't just go, okay, what's my purpose? Right, done. It's a long thing. It's got to fit. So that's an important one. But so when you work that purpose out, then you develop yourself as a full person, not just the work person, but your full life. So you've got to have everything in it, not just what am I going to do at work. So therefore, I'm going to talk about some books and things that aren't work related, because they're inspiring and I got a kick out of. Yeah. And I remember reading this book when I was in Shimla, actually, on holidays, and it's called River of Gods. I'm not sure of how popular that is in India, but an amazing book that took a while for me to get into. Science fiction about the future, not too distant future, where water is scarce. India is split into two. And there's a war happening over water rights, and there's different characters in it. Amazing book, really loved it, and that was amazing for me. Probably from a movie point of view, and it probably goes into that challenge and getting out of the comfort zone. My favorite movie of all time is a movie called Donnie Darko, which is actually Jake Gyllenhaal's first movie. But he was nobody at the time. And if anyone's seen Donnie Darko, I think I've seen it 20 times and I still don't understand it. And that's the beauty of that movie. I understand a lot, but every time you see it, you go, does that mean it's about time travel? It's about all sorts of things. It's the easiest way to explain it. It's about a 6 foot tall bunny rabbit, but that doesn't give anything away. But amazing movie. And I just wanted to harp on, you asked about my favourite place on earth. And I only got to go to this place because I lived in India, because it was nice and close. And I went to Jordan. And Jordan is just one of the most fabulous places on earth from a tourist point of view, from a people point of view, lovely people. And you mentioned before getting peace and quiet. I actually struggled. We slept, my now wife and I, slept out in the desert in Wadi Rum in Jordan, and my ears were in pain because they were searching for something to hear, and I'd gone from Pune with noise 24 hours a day to no noise at all, and I had ear pain, but it was so relaxing to the mind to get away to someone that was so quiet, so beautiful, and so friendly as Jordan was.
So nice. Thank you so much. I think you have traveled across the world. How many countries you have traveled to, Darren? Any count?
A lot. I think the last time I counted was about 50 or 60, I think.
60 countries. Wow. That's like another message for people. I think
but then what? Yeah. But then I'd argue that India is not one country.
India is not one country.
There's so many different cultures and influences and histories to learn about India. You can go to 20 countries just staying behind the country.
India is like absolutely right. Maybe 20 countries, absolutely different languages. I know that from the place that I'm speaking, I'm in Pune. You just travel for 2 hours and then you'll land in a place where the language is totally different. I know.
Yeah.
And this changes every couple of hours, kind of. And totally
exactly.
different. I mean, you can't make one word. I mean, that's the kind of country. You're absolutely right. I think And that's the kind of enlightenment, awakenings that we get when we see different places the way you have seen different countries. So amazing. And I think what you said is absolutely right, Darren. Purpose, when we went for this workshop, I could, because I was thinking, so I could get some idea. There are people who were 62 years of age, they were still discovering, and they still might be still discovering, trying to discover. We leave it free. You are absolutely right. It's not something which you can do in 2 days. Very true. One question which I always ask people, because I've been in the field of writing as well. So if we write a book on the life and career of Darren so far, of course, 50, 60 countries, a lot of companies, a lot of places, breaking comfort zone, and healthy eating, and coach, and the vision for Australian team. So what would be the title of that book?
Well, I think I shared that with you before. As I said, I'm not perfect. I'm just being the best Darren I can be. So there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's my title. It sums everyone. Don't be perfect, because by being perfect you won't be perfect. And by no means am I perfect. It's just I try to use my strengths to their best ability.
Awesome. So audience, this is for audience. Audience, always remember this. Reflect on this sentence which Darren has said. We need to appreciate the fact that we are crackpots. The challenge here is that many people get a feeling that there is no crack. They are perfect. They are shining. They are glossing. No, you are not shining, glossing. There are cracks which you can't see. Others can see. That's not a very good situation to be. It's better that we know. Thank you so much, Darren. It's 1 hour because time is important.
Thank you, Aaron.
Amazing talking to you. I know that it's not the last. We are going to have more conversations around the sports coaching. I think I'm going to come back to you. Thank you so much from India. Look forward to see you whenever you come to make a plan to come to India once again. Maybe it's as you said, it's multiple countries, so there is no. I think you can always think of coming here once again.
We'd love to.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Dhanyawad.